to have ability to resist the evil and then practice non-resistance. So first let us earn. Now let us look at what is in Swamiji also stresses on one more concept of, if anything has to change, that has to change from the middle class, because the poor cannot, the rich will not. So who is going to revolutionize? Who is going to evolve the society? It is the middle class. And we are actually on a beautiful platform today. Nearly 25% of Indians are in the middle class. What a potential we have. You know the Anna Hazare movement that happened recently. You know the experiments that are happening in terms of anti-corruption, etc. Who are the voices? Look at the 2014 elections. Everybody is thinking about middle class votes because they are the larger chunk. How are we going to look at that? Well, Swamiji's dream is getting into action. That's what Mr. Srinivas was also telling, saying that he's silently getting everybody to work. So, in that context, Swamiji says, as society evolves, the day will come when men will study history from a different light and find that competition is neither the cause nor the effect, simply a thing on the way, not necessary to evolution at all. Are we need to be competitive? Do we need to be competitive in everything that we do? Big question. At least Swamiji says it is not necessary for evolution at all. Okay. And I come from a habitat where complementarity is a rule, not competition. The Jenu Kurubas will fetch honey. The Betta Kurubas are going to work on the bamboos. Both enter the forest. The Betta Kurubas will never fetch honey. The Jenu Kurubas will never pick up bamboo. And both of them need both, but they will share, barter in the community when they come back. So what is the answer for Swamiji? Swamiji gives us for everything, all inclusive. He says worshipful service. That means he has transformed work into a service. And what is that work and service? He has got, because ultimately he had told, saying that if India has to win, he has to be the world leader. It has to conquer the world by its spiritual prowess. So it has to be all inclusive, all embracing. And that is how India is going to be in the 21st century. It was his vision and thoughts. So Shiva Jnana Jiva Seva. So ultimately everything has to be spiritualized. So whatever you want to do, it is spiritualized. So what is service? Service is very simple. Work should also be the same. Anything that has been done with an act of gratitude, I would say an attitude of gratitude, is all service. So if you go to work because somebody is providing us the means of livelihood, there is a gratitude there. If you serve the people, we are getting our salaries in the government from the people's money. It's the taxpayers' money. It is because of them we have a position to serve. And if that act of gratitude is considered, act is considered as with an attitude of gratitude, that work becomes more ennobling. I wanted to just add a sentence which after Srinivas actually looked at. Swamiji actually looked at assimilation. But he went beyond assimilation to disseminate, devolve. So, in fact, Bhagavad Gita also reiterates that statement. If one wants to achieve his own welfare, he should strive to ensure that the welfare of other human beings also. Then only you will be able to grow yourself. Swamiji gives the example of a heart where the entire blood is assimilated, not for itself. The coronary arteries take a very minute quantity of the entire blood that gets assimilated into it. It just distributes across the body for the body to survive. So that's the level that we are looking at. So assimilation is important. So access to assimilation, but after assimilation it is dissemination. We have to devolve. And that's what decentralization, devolution, dissemination all about. Well, how are we different from a machine? Because I was looking at physics. The physics talks work done as any force which translates it into a result or an outcome where there is a displacement of a specific distance in the direction of the force. So definitely any force will end up doing work. So every machine also does work. So what is the difference between a man and a machine? The machine, as days progress, the second-hand machine will be less less costly. It loses its value. Then it becomes a junk. So the more the machine works, the more faster it becomes a junk. The man has a unique prowess. The man, as he gets more experience, the more he works, he becomes more mature, more learned, more wise, more joyful, more richer in every way. So more stronger in every way. So what is the difference? What is that which changes? What is the difference between the machine and a man? The machine provides only economic value, but the man has got both economic value and moral value. In other words, it is not just external productivity that man gets out of work. It is external productivity plus inner enrichment. Both happens through work, and this can happen only when you go through the worshipful service that Swamiji elucidated so beautifully. And that's what he says, sagely within, kingly without. Outside you look like a Raja, but inside you're always renunciating. So that is this one. And the concept of service has lot of harmony. In fact, he harmonized all yogas itself. The yoga itself was talking of union, and now he harmonized all yogas. And in fact, he clearly says that service or work which is bereft of heartlessness of an intellectuals. I don't want an intellect who is heartless. I don't want an emotional who is bigot. We do not want a meditative who is aloof sitting in the Himalayas. We do not want an active karma yogi, or not karma yogi, the person in karma or the work who is arrogant. We need to pacify everything. He actually made it so practical, Vedanta, for that all of us, saying that yes, we all work. Why? Because we have desires, and that desires is to achieve some things. All our efforts are to find objects that of our desire. So the desired objects have to be with us. And what is the purpose of life? Everybody was talking from yesterday about science equal to knowledge, and knowledge is intuitive, classical, everything, and we had a knowledge, the future knowledge society, everything about it. So all of us want knowledge. Okay, work has to yield desired projects, the life has to give us knowledge. Swamiji brought a beautiful integration of the two. He said, service is action leading to knowledge. So you have to act, you have to work. And why do you want to work? Because you have to get the prowess to resist the evil. And if you want to prowess to resist the evil, but do it in a way that you will gain knowledge. So both became harmonized, and that's the harmony that is there. In fact, he articulates in terms of individuality progressing into a good personality. And that personality is because, as I told you, the inner enrichment that happens in addition to the sensual desires that we acquire and probably ultimately achieve. So our schools and colleges make us individuals because we have only one Vidya, the secular Vidya. The spiritual Vidya is forgotten. That is why we never become persons when we come out of this one. We are all individuals. So we end up building an individual society, okay, not a evolved personality-driven societies. How do we actually achieve these things? What is the approach? Swamiji actually enunciates further, saying that means is as important as the end. It is not just the end that is important. Today we achieve lot of things. We have got a enormous economic growth, but we have the division between the rich and the poor, the rural and this one, the IT enabled and the IT disabled, wide gaps. And going further, what we are aiming is not self-reliance. We always talk about self-reliance. Self-reliance breeds arrogance, and dependence polishes our, I would say, low self-esteem. So we become less confident, have low esteem when we are dependent. And when we become self-reliant, we become arrogant. What is required is a balance of the two, interdependence. We have to have pride in ourselves, at the same time respect and humility within ourselves for the sake of others. And then probably we'll be able to enjoy that work. Because the moment we have interdependent, teamwork is normal. Organized efforts are normal. Joy in the workplace is normal. And that's what we look at. He talked about the 3H rule, the heart, the head and the hand. He even says wherever your heart goes, the head and hand will simply follow. There's no confusion about it. But what is more important is the fourth one. With what motive have you put your heart and head? We were talking about that with respect to capitalism and other issues there. So it is not just the 3H rule, the underlying parameter of the motive behind what we want to do. And unless and until that we actually look at that motive to be ennobling, all your work will put us in, inflate our ego, decrease our clarity of vision, and appreciate that work as drudgery, and have sleepless nights and more IHDs and ICUs in this country or the global. So defense of the right is also there, and of course the 3P principles that he gave: purity, patience and perseverance. The purity, patience and perseverance is basically a socialization, social application of sannyasa in fact. Whatever you do it with that attitude of motive. So once you are pure, the purity in your thoughts, patience and perseverance in the way we actually handle the situations. This gives us unlimited expansion of our self, and clarity of vision is what Swamiji says. Then who else have to lead this? In fact, for the question, shall India die? Swamiji answers, then from the world all spirituality will be extinct. All sweet-souled sympathy for religion will be extinct. All identity will be extinct, and in its place will reign the duality of lust and luxury as the male and female deities, with money as its priest, fraud, force and competition as its ceremonies, and human soul as its sacrifice. Such a thing can never be. We are I would say we are actually slipping into that, but there are Swamiji's thoughts, philosophies and people whom he has nurtured, and I am sure India will never see that. And such shall India die, it will never. Such a thing can never happen. And we are going to lead the world. And we have an opportunity. We have a youthful force. Swamiji wanted men. Yes, 3 days back I was lecturing in a regional science conference in South India. And I was amazed to see the audience. More than 80% was all women, girls. And all of them were MScs and PhDs. I asked the dean and director, saying that, what is that? There are no boys in your institution. He said, 70% of my admission is only girls, sir. Well, I keep seeing that. Probably today also there is equal, I would say even balance. And in that context, it's very, very appealing that more women are coming into it. Madam has a better role now. Okay, and women can drive this nation, right from the self-help movement at the village level to the intellectuals who are driving the wisdom of this country. And we have a lot of youth. Age less than 45 years is 70.6%. The middle class is 25%. But where are we? We are already celebrating. India is shining. Where is India shining? 4.6% of India owns all the so-called technology gadgets: TV, phone, car, scooter and computer. These are the surveys done only in 2013. And it says only 4.6% of Indians. So where is the wealth to renunciate first? So nothing is exclusive in Swamiji's thoughts. And this need not happen overnight. Swamiji has given steps also. You start with work and worship. Have work as well as worship. Evolve yourself to look at work as worship. Then finally you will reach a stage where work is worship. Is it practical? Yes. My own organization has been a learning story for me to understand how we actually evolved. I was reminded of the Vedic principle of naming. I am sure many of it has been continued in the various mission and the ashrams. When somebody is given a name, I am sure that name is based on a model that they have to look for. Okay. So Smita, if your name, cannot be that Asmita. That person has to have there is a goal for everything. So the naming had a value, in the sense that it not only identified a person, it not only discriminated a person from another person, but also gave a vision for that person's life, how they should be. A Jyoti should actually become Jyoti for herself and the Jyoti for the world. Okay, and that is what this one. And whenever we call her Jyoti, it is also reminding us that we have to be like that. So there was a role model. So naming it, we have to change first in our country. We have suddenly started putting acronyms with no meaning. Wipro, I was looking at. What is Wipro? Western Indian Vegetable Products Organization. And we are running IT-enabled services. So we don't know what we are trying to look at, because each of it has got a deeper meaning. And that is spiritualization in what I am trying to say. Saying that unless and until everything, because we are all behind symbols and signas, etc., and everything becomes important for us, then all the names should actually reflect why and not how. We have to look at core values. We ourselves have renunciation and service, means Tyaga and Seva, and Satya and Ahimsa as core principles. And every review, every monthly, we actually look at anecdotes of what we have done, valuing that issue. There will be spiritual retreats, because ultimately it is contemplation and reflection that is important. Lastly. And whenever there is a work engagement, this is the hierarchy in which we have been able to look at issue. First is values. Is it in alignment with our core values? If yes, the next question, is it in alignment with our mission of the organization? If yes, third, is it sensitive to human beings that we serve, or do we have the human capital to take care of it? If all three are yes, the fourth one will be searched, the money. Money is, just because some money comes in, nothing will be taken up. So, we can have common privileges for basic needs, food, shelter, or clothing. No discrimination has to be looked at. Ultimately, if all of these things have to be achieved, the most important thing is we have to crave for some shared issues. What is that share I'm talking about? The crave itself in reverse will tell you what we need to share. First, share the environment. We all have to be together. The second thing is share the values. All of us should be of like-minded, looking at the same context. Third, shared accountability. We need to be accountable to the people we said. All of us have to take that burden. Fourth, share the responsibilities. Finally, what is breaking most of the time is our unwillingness to share credit. And that is what I'm thinking. So the crave, if you want to crave for those sharing in that context, whether it's environment, values, accountability, responsibility, and credit. We can work as a team. We will have the joy of being together. At the same time, we'll be joyful as we have a guilt-free sleep. Face your past with regret. Let us not face our past with regret. And we'll handle our present with confidence. Let us prepare our future without fear, because Swamiji spoke most about fearlessness, abhihi, abhihi. So anything running or anything being motivated, inspired by Swamiji cannot be with fear, because he stood for fearlessness. In fact, I was very deeply moved when I actually, recently about 6 months back, I was walking into a tribal colony, and when there was a self-help group meeting, I had to get them together. So when I walked in, the old lady walked out suddenly, and they had actually, I would say, drying their ragi grains, millets, in the sun. So when I walked up to them, suddenly the old lady came running, picked up everything, and then put it back inside, allowing us space and probably clearing the way for us, because we had to sit there. In my own medical-oriented hygiene systems, I said, what have you done? You wasted so much of this one. Why didn't you pick up those millets that have fallen there? The old lady replied back, and I was ashamed of my own educated status. She said, who's going to feed the birds? You're talking about a primitive Jenukurba lady, so-called illiterate. Even at that impulsive action of taking away drying grains back into the house, she is reminded of the birds not to collect every grain fallen from the gunny bag. That is a sensitivity. That is real India. That is real spirituality. If all of us could simply relive it, as Swamiji said, leadership is not anything great. It is all about reliving our childhood. As children, we are the greatest leaders, and each of us has passed through the childhood. So we need to get back to our childhood status, and that's how work could be more joyful. Thank you very much, and this needed philosophy probably will take India to be the ruler of the world as Swamiji envisioned. Thank you.
Dr. Balasubramanya showed how a new work culture based on the concept of seeing God in man and serving him in a worshipful attitude would stem the tide of competition in society for survival and replace it with a positive attitude of dignity and pride in the products of work in the absence of corruption, exploitation, and discrimination. In the prospect of enabling working women and men to see the world more as an opportunity and work with joy. Dr. Balasubramaniam outlines 3 steps of evolution in society: competition, cooperation, and sacrifice or consecration. In this new work culture, attention would be given to the means of work as well as to the end, and focus would be on interdependence and not mere self-reliance. So I thank both the speakers for their wonderful presentations. We all enjoyed them very much. I wonder if there's 5 minutes for me to put in my 2 cents or not. Shall I? Excuse me. The new work ethic of renunciation and of renunciation of selfishness and service requires an expansion of identity, or an expansion of consciousness of individuals, and this spiritual evolution is rare in today's society, let us face it. What we generally see in people's attitudes is devil take the hindmost, ruthless competition for the goods of life. To replace this competition with cooperation, there has to be some incentive. Then what is that incentive? It is the faith that by unselfishly serving others, we are moving toward a greater personal gain also, and that I am more than this small individual. The larger perspective has to be taught with other ethical and moral values at home and proliferated in the media and in all the arts and all aspects of society. Swamiji's American friend and ambassador, Josephine MacLeod, spent her whole life roaming around the whole world, inspiring people with Swamiji's ideas, and she would find the most talented people, the most famous people who were energetic, and she thought could express Swamiji's ideas in their work: artists, choreographers, writers, journalists, and architects, anyone who could express Swamiji's ideas, and she gave them Swamiji's books to read and inspired them. I think that we could also do some of that. It's not enough just to listen to lectures and read books. We have to do some of that ambassador work. Then individuals and groups across the country are chipping away at the absolute power of the state. Some groups are asking for more stringent laws to check corruption and crime. But it is no use expecting laws to right the wrongs of people's minds. As Swamiji said, the kings are gone. Where is the new sanction, the new power of the people? The power of the people is in a democratic, the power of the people in a democratic society is their collective wills. When the wills of all the people are united, it becomes a very powerful force. The will has to be tempered with an ethical education. According to Swamiji, ethics is only finding the unity. If one of my fingers is hurt, I am hurt. Because consciousness is continuous, what affects one person affects everyone else. He says anything that separates you from others is immoral. So tyaga and seva, renunciation of selfishness and service to fellow beings, the new philosophy of work. Well, who is the best person to teach it? Actually, as we heard today, the mothers have always been the first educators of the children from the time they are in the womb. And this Madalasa consciousness is now being rediscovered scientifically, though most women have forgotten their tradition. It seems to me the mothers, teachers training that used to be given to mothers of preschool children should have been continued. What is needed now is to train mothers. Soon after Swamiji dedicated Sister Nivedita to the God of compassion, she heroically nursed plague victims. She and Swami Sadananda swept the streets of the lanes in the slums because she felt that they were her own people. They generated enthusiasm so that others joined them. Today there are more evils than the plague that plagues society. Most of the problem is that people do not feel that others are their own. They cannot accept the idea that the thief, the terrorists, and so on are in them. A few women, Swamiji envisioned, could transform society, as he said, "Give me a few men and women who are pure and selfless, and I shall shake the world." No man can do it. It must be done by women alone. Swamiji said the new cycle will live Vedanta, and this will come through women. Those who are his pioneers, pioneer disciples, Nivedita, Christine, and Sudhira, who started a school, wanted to create many such schools to give this special education to women. It was to be a combined effort of the best of Eastern and Western ideals. These disciples intended to carry out Swamiji's ideals. Sister Christine wrote, "New values must be substituted for old. New purposes and aims must be brought into focus, for it was not merely a school which he had in mind, not an institution, but something much bigger, something which would make thousands and tens of thousands of institutions possible in the future. In short, it was to be an attempt to create the educators of a new order. Out of it would grow a new race, a race of supermen and superwomen." So now I conclude this third academic session, and it is now time to invite questions, but I think the questions will be done in the
we'll do away with the question and answer session.
Panel discussion.
Please, we are running short of time. During the discussion hour, you can ask questions. So with this, we come to the end of the third academic session of this seminar. Arrangements for lunch have been made in the main foyer on the ground floor. All of you, please go to the main foyer and have your lunch and be back by 1:45.